All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to see y'all today. Thank you for being here. And welcome also to those of you on Zoom. We're so glad that folks can join us via that medium. We have a joy this morning of welcoming Erin Barksdale Coles to come and speak with us a little bit. Many of you know Erin from Highland Renaissance Academy, a longtime partner of Covenant Presbyterian Church. So we're so glad to get to chat with you a little bit as we continue this summer education series on, we've gone through several themes. So we began our summer together thinking about this idea and practice of discernment. Then we focused on Sabbath. And now we're talking a little bit about equipping. And Erin's going to help us expand our understanding of equipping as we think about how to prepare for what is next in our lives as people of faith. So before we begin, I would love for us to open with a word of prayer. Would you please join me? Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for the gift of this day and for an opportunity to come together and to learn with one another. We pray that you would be in this space, that you would help us to listen for how it is that you are speaking to us, how it is that you are calling us to live lives of discipleship. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
This Sunday is going to look just a little bit different than it has. Erin and I are going to have a bit of a conversation up here. And I'll preface this by saying that originally, Nikki Zimmerman was going to be moderating this conversation, and we've had a little bit of a change in plan, so I'm truly flying by the seat of my pants this morning. Erin is super gracious, and if you see me like reading different questions that were prepared by Nikki Zimmerman, it's because I need to read the questions. So I'd love to just start out by Erin having you tell us a little bit about you. Folks know you, but there might be some folks here who don't know you. So tell us, let's zoom out a little bit on life and tell us about your background and what has shaped you.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me. I love Covenant. Love you all in our partnership and what you all have done for Highland and for me personally. So I am a native Charlottean. You don't meet many of those anymore. I'm a product of CMS schools. I went to Lebanon Road, Randolph, and Butler High School. Spelman College, all girl HBCU school. I had no clue what I wanted to do. All I knew was I'm going to Spelman. That was it. I gave up a full presidential scholarship in state. My parents were like, yes, you can. My sister went to Chapel Hill. I was like, I am going to Spelman. That's all I knew. And I got to my junior year and my advisor said, honey, you can't stay here. I was like, oh, I have to graduate. Yes. I majored in English because I loved literature and writing and critical thinking. I had no clue. Everybody was either going to law school or medical school. I didn't want to do either. I was like, well, I don't know. So I took a education class as one of my electives, and I had to student teach in second grade. And I said, that is it. I'm going to be a teacher. So I applied to Teach for America. I did my little mini lesson. I taught a lesson on, it was verbs using like a flower. I got in and I was like, yes, I'm going to teach second grade. And they said, oh, you're going to teach 12th graders. So I was 22 years old teaching 18-year-olds AP English. Demaine Brown was 6'2", walked into the class, thought I was a student. And I looked at him and I said, come here, like, Demaine, I am your teacher. It was wild, but it was great. And it put me on a path towards, okay, I want to. I remember when I sat in TFA, they said, what is your why? And I was just so inspired and also really upset about how education and school look different for kids, Black kids, brown kids, poor kids, all the kids. Like, it just, depending on the side of town you lived on, your education looked different. And I didn't know that. My sister, she went to Charlotte Country Day. I went to Butler High School. I stay away from saying a school is good or bad, but I was at a school that had traditionally excelled. And coming into student teaching and Teach for America, I saw that, oh, wait, this is not the experience for every kid. And I recognize a lot of my biases. Destiny Turner in my 10th grade lit class, we were talking about college and all the things, and she raised her hand and she said, Miss Barksdale or Miss Barsdale, because that Southern drawl in Atlanta was just real thick. She said, "You're talking to me about college. You have a lot of privilege." This is a 10th grade student in Atlanta in 2007 or 8. She said, "You have two parents. You went to a private school. You have medical care." She said, "When I graduate from high school, I'm going to be the first person in my family to graduate from high school." And a 10th grade student checked me in the middle of English Lit. And I said, "You know what? You're right." And that just shifted my whole perspective about success and opportunity, and how that's just important for every single kid. And that set me on the path to be a principal. I never wanted to be a principal. And this past year, I won Principal of the Year. And my old high school principal, Joel Ritchie, wrote me a letter. And I was like, "You remembered me," because I gave him, I wasn't the most well behaved student. I was well behaved. I got in trouble a little bit. But for him to write me a and I think handwritten notes are amazing. He remembered me and he was like, "You had leadership then. And I am just so proud to see you be a principal." So um, that's me.
Well, I know Covenant has been proud to see you as a principal. And I think you like, I told this to Erin, I used to teach second grade. So I still think of myself as a teacher at heart.
Yeah.
And have so much of my life has been shaped by teachers.
Mhm.
And I bet many people in this room can say the same thing about a teacher
Yeah.
in their life. So tell us a little bit about your time at Highland.
Yeah.
So you had it's obviously some experience teaching before you landed there,
Mhm.
and in the role as principal.
Yep.
So talk to us about how you landed at Highland,
Sure.
and about your role there.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um, so I became a principal at 28. I don't recommend that. I don't. In Dallas, Texas. I was a principal in Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, and then always wanted to become a principal here in Charlotte. So I actually founded and launched Renaissance West STEAM Academy off of West Boulevard. Deep in a impoverished area, in a changing area in West Charlotte, but lots of promise and potential. And so I was there. And then one day I got a call from a former boss, and he said, "We are not pleased with your performance. You're being moved." And that was really hard. Opening a school is hard anyway. And opening a school in one of the most impoverished areas in Charlotte is tough. And we had made double-digit gains. We were seeing like some success, but it was really hard. And they were like, "We're moving you to Highland." And I said, I didn't even know where Highland was. Um, and so I went through about a 6-month process of doubting my capacity. Like, am I a good leader? They moved me from that school and moved me over here because this school is easier, because I couldn't do that over there. So they just stuck me here. And Highland had gone through a series of different principals and had never, when you get a new principal, there's a process where you sit on an interview panel, you get to vet the new principal. They had been promised that. That had never happened. And I just showed up July 19th. Um, and I walked in the door and I sat in the front office and I just started answering the phones. People were calling, asking me stuff. I didn't know how to transfer a phone call. I was like, "This is my first day. Let me take a message." And people were just coming in and out. And I didn't say who I was. I was just kind of watching, because I felt very othered. I didn't feel equipped to do, like, I thought I was equipped to do Renaissance West, but you snatched me out of that and you stuck me here. And I don't know anything about this place. And when I met with the staff, I was very, transparency is one of my core values. And I said, "Look, you didn't expect me and I didn't expect you, but we're here. And there's obviously a reason we're here together. There's something I need from y'all and maybe something you need from me. So let's just do it." And my biggest priority, my new boss said, you really have to build trust with the Highland teachers because they were teachers who had been there when the doors opened, which I had never been at a school where there were largely veteran teachers there. So I said, I got to be visible. So I had my little Some of you have been to Highland, my little mobile desk out in the middle of the hallway. And I just sat there and I would work, and the teachers were like, "Why are you watching us?" And I'm like, "I'm just here, just welcome." And so visibility was really important, and saying, if I said I was going to do something, doing it. And that just took off with us. I don't know the official data from this past year, but we were one of 39 schools out of 181 to exceed growth 2 years in a row. We got off a low performing list, and thank you. We were on a low performing school list, but got off of it within a year. We had an over 80% retention rate. School culture data soared. And while the stats, we took off, what Highland did for me was, I think, even bigger than what my staff realized. That 6-month period from July to December, I was really unclear about, do I even need to be a principal because I'm not good enough? So there was this kind of performance orientation versus a learning orientation. Didn't know. I was like, well, let me just perform and do. And that's very ego driven, where being at Highland caused me to just sit still. And there was a time where I wasn't really talking to God. God was talking to me. But I was like, I'm mad at you because I thought my mission was, I'm going to go back to Charlotte and open this school in my city. And I remember sitting with my therapist saying, I got to pick out the walls and I designed the gym and I'm in the walls there. And she said, "Gosh, what does it feel like to be trapped?" And I was like, I didn't think of it that way. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. And so I remember just sitting with God. There's a session that principals and CMS go to. It's called School Center for Intentional Leadership. We jokingly call it principal therapy, where you go and talk about all of your traumas as a principal, because that's what we do. And that was a defining moment for me. It was like, I cannot sit here and wallow and think I was not good enough. Um, I don't think I would have left my former school on my own. Right? I tell people all the time, God does not whisper to me and say, "Oh, Erin," God has to say, "Come here." He has to snatch me up a little bit to get my attention. And that's what he did. And he put me in a place where I had this thinking that I was only a good leader if everything was on fire and there was chaos. And I got to Highland, things were not on fire, things were not chaotic. I was able to build sustainable systems, which I had never done before. And I was only able to do that because of the people at Highland and the trust that we built. And so I told my staff when I announced that I was leaving, which was so dramatic and full of tears, and it was a lot. I said, Highland healed me, and allowed me, you all were, God was speaking through you all to say, okay, this is a good thing, and you can slow down and you can actually build out a vision, and you're not running around and it's not chaotic. Like that's not always normal, right? Um, and so I was able to just sit and be still and principle, and we accomplished a lot of great things. And we had an amazing partnership with you all that I remember July through April was really tough. Just in our school district, just with a lot of things that were happening. And I remember one of my meetings, I had a monthly meeting with you all. And Mandy and Nikki said, "How are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm fine." And they said, "No, no, no, let's take a minute." And so being able to have a partnership with you all where you all saw me as a person, I think that just added to the great things that we were being able to do at Highland, and really helped me as a person, be well as a leader there. Yeah.
How many people, just curious, show of hands, how many folks here have spent time at Highland? Okay.
Great.
That's pretty cool. One thing that strikes me so much about what you've said, Erin, is, this, um, you talked a little bit about the good enough
Mm,
feeling,
mhm,
especially when you were snatched away and
mhm,
placed at Highland against your own choosing.
mhm,
The question of, am I good enough for this?
mhm,
And I think that when we think about this idea of equipping, we think about, what can I do to to feel good enough? What can I give myself? How can I train myself to be good enough,
Mhm.
equipped for the thing that I'm doing? And last week, when Dr. Brennan Breed was here, he talked to us a little bit about the biblical word. I don't have it top of mind right now, but the Greek word for equipping actually means something more like woven together.
Mm.
And it's so clear from your experience at Highland that there was some weaving together happening, of you and this community and time and grace and support, and that being equipped is really that slow journey of being woven together, for something that you're doing. So that's
Mhm.
a cool connection for me to last week, and fun to hear how that's looked in
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah.
So you were at Highland for some time.
Mhm.
Weird to say were. Share a little bit with us about this kind of season of discernment that
Mhm.
you've had in your life,
Yeah.
and what that process has looked like for you.
Sure, sure. So I remember it very clearly. It was December, the new year. We were going into January. I think I had presented an award here to Mandy and Nikki for just great partnership. And I just felt like this tug. It was very quiet. Now God is, it was quiet this time. He said, "There's something more you need to do." And I had heard that and I was like, well, there's more work to be done at Highland, right? There's always work to be done in a school. Um, and I remember saying, well, what is it? And old Erin would have like been actively looking for a job and, oh, there's this new opportunity. But I wasn't, for the first time, I think in my career, I wasn't running from anything. It was like, I am happy here. We are doing good work here. There's still more for me to learn and do. But I did feel a tug of like, there's something more. And so I make my husband and my 2-year-old, we got like construction paper, like, what are our goals for the new year? And he wrote down like, try more recipes. And I was like, okay, cool. And I wrote, I wrote, make a big professional leap. And I wrote, you're ready for something more. And we put it on the refrigerator and I just stuck it up there. And I think it's Habakkuk where it says, write the vision, make it plain. And I wrote it down. Hold on. And if it seems to tarry, just wait. And I wrote that down. I didn't know what the new role was going to be. I said, okay, well, it'll be within CMS. There's a role, executive director, where you're coaching principals in schools. I love all things school leadership and taking care of principals. And I said, well, maybe it's that. Um, but I didn't know, and I was not actively running to seek it. I said, okay, if it's whatever it is for me, it'll come and I'll be ready for it. So this thinking originally of performance orientation, let me do improve, had shifted to whatever it is, I'll be ready for it and I'll know. And I got really values aligned. And then February came and I was having a conversation with a friend, and we went to dinner, and she told me about a new opportunity. And I said, oh, well, that sounds neat. And I walked away from it like, okay, that's cool. And let's go back to Highland, and I'll be very transparent. You know, the time from January to April as a principal was really, really hard. We were undergoing a lot of big changes, a lot of changes in strategy. Some of my positions got cut. My social worker position got reduced from 5 days a week to 1 day, and a quarter of our population is homeless. And that was really hard. Highland, you know, is right across the street from Hope Haven, up the road from those hotels where a lot of our families in transition live. And I could not understand how a quarter of my population is homeless and I'm going to have a social worker 1 day a week. That was hard. I remember meeting with Mandy and Nikki, and I said, please send this out to everybody you know, like advocate for us. And it was a really hard time. I was not sleeping, and that tug of something more, I had to grapple with that. I said, okay, do I want to do something more because I'm really stressed and this is really, really, really hard and I want to run away from it? Or do I want to do something more because it is truly time? Um, and that just time of reflection for me was like, okay, don't make any decisions right now when things are just kind of muddy and murky. Let's just keep pushing through. Social worker position got reinstated, thank goodness. Um, And this opportunity came up and things got really clear. Um, and I said, okay, this is the new opportunity to go and support now charter school principals to help make their schools great. Um, and it was clear. There was no, I don't know, I'm not sure. There was so much ease in the process to the point where I was like, okay, God, this was a little, I don't know, this was a little too easy. But then I had to shift the mindset. Like, this is very values aligned. This is the next opportunity. And telling my staff was so dramatic. And I walked into the room and I was hyperventilating, and they were like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I've decided to resign." It was so dramatic. Um, but I talked through the why, and I was very clear that if I'm leaving on to the next role, I'm not going to leave to be another principal somewhere else, because Highland is that's the place. I have a 2-year-old. He'll be in pre-K soon. I said I want him to come here because we built a school where the teachers and the staff, this school is good enough or good for our children too, and not just the kids in this community. Um, but this is a next step to really lean into school leadership, see a different side of leadership, more from a philanthropic standpoint. Um, and that's what we did. And I think so far it's been a good decision. I deeply miss Highland already. I saw out on the wall the blessing of the backpacks, and I saw Highland. I was like, I'm not gonna be there for it. And I remember telling Nikki, I was like, okay, I know you have the new principal. We had an amazing transition. She is ready. And I told her, I said, I don't tell principals what to do all the time, but you better nurture this covenant partnership. You better meet once a month. You better keep it. And she was like, heard and will. So yeah.
Well, I think, I mean, it is hard to know, like you said the words, it was truly time
Mhm,
to go and do the next thing.
mhm,
And it's so hard to know the difference between, um, a like secure no and a
mhm,
trepidated yes.
mhm,
And I think, you know, what a gift that you've had that clarity to say, yes, it is time for the next thing.
sure.
Could you expand a little bit about, about your yes, about how you knew
Mhm,
deep down that it
mhm.
was time to
Yeah,
say, um, my time at Highland is done. That
yeah,
doesn't mean that Highland's done with you,
sure.
but it was time for you to move on. So tell us a little bit about that click, a little bit more about that clarity, what it looked like,
Mhm,
and then also about your next steps.
sure. Things got really quiet. And when I think about different moments in my life where there's been a big change, I was able to look back and say a common theme was things got quiet. Not It was just quiet. I don't know how to describe that in better terms, but there was a peace about it. I remember another point in my career where I made a decision. I'll be honest, it was the wrong decision to make. And I remember waking up literally in a cold sweat, like physically was like, my body was saying, this is not it. But again, performance orientation learning, which my ego was like, no, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And it just was not the right thing. With this, and even when I got sent to Highland, being at Renaissance West for 3 years, I didn't sleep. I had to take something to sleep every night. I was not eating. I was not well. The moment when they said you're going to Highland, I slept for the first time in 3 years. Um, and that's how I was like, things got quiet. And I was like, all right, I don't know this Highland place, but I'm sleeping. So maybe this is better. With this situation, things got quiet. There was again that peace and just that quiet. And I heard that this is it. And I'd be driving to work and happy to go to work, like loved Highland. I would hear, this is it. And I'm like, what you mean? This is it. And I'm like, no, this is. And then I remember pulling in the parking lot one day, and I had a meeting, another meeting, and I came back to campus and I saw the kids in the bus parking lot and the sun was shining. I got out of the car and I looked up and I'd heard, this is it. And I said, this is it. This is it. It was aligned with my values. It was And there's never a good time to leave or to do next. But I was like, this is okay. This is it. And that just continually was playing in my head. And even when I announced to my staff that I was leaving, I was very clear about it. I said the next 2 months, it is not about me. It is about me helping you all transition and secure and shore up things. Let me hire up as much as I can. And I did. By the time I left, we only had one more hire to make. I don't know if that's still the case. But things felt wrapped up for the next opportunity. And so this new role is with a new, I'm only a month in, but is a philanthropic ed nonprofit called Great Schools North Carolina, where we are starting with charter schools. And it's important to know that charter schools are still public schools. It's not traditional district school, but it is still a public school. And the kind of our agent of changes is the principal. It is the school leader. So being able to have a deep investment in principals and be able to fund them, whether you want to start up your own charter or if you are a charter school leader of an existing charter school. I'm the managing director of school quality. So they'll apply for a grant upwards to like $150,000 where I can say, okay, this is the thing that you need to make your school great here. Now, I'm not giving you 150K and walking away. There will be coaching and touch points, but I've been learning just in the landscape of charter schools across the state that support is okay, we come and visit your school for once a year and then we leave. But this opportunity, I'll be able to deeply invest in a school leader and support them in whether it's changing your letter grade or improving instruction, but it's really making the dreams of a principal come true. I'm not your evaluator. I am not someone from the state that has all of these metrics. Now, obviously, there's need to be a rubric and things, but I'll be able to design professional development experiences for principals and be able to say, listen, I just left the seat a month ago. I know what it's like to be a principal. And here's what I can do to truly help and support. And I think just thinking about how principals are feeling right now, there's just a lot happening. So if you have children, grandchildren in schools, please like go to your grandchild or kid's principal and say, what do you need? Like, is it lunch? What is it? Because the wellness of a principal, I think often gets overlooked. We just take the mandates and go and do, and burnout is happening a lot. And to be able to, in this new role, tell a principal, I have the funding because that is huge. And it's not okay, I'm giving you this funding and every 3 months you have to do this 50-page report on, no, I have this funding for you that can truly transform your school. And I'll be able to connect you to resources and coach you on the thing that you need, and take care of you. Um, yeah, yeah,
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about
sure.
that, but want to pause and invite you as you're listening to Erin. If you have questions, I think we'll end up having a few minutes for some question and response time. So if you have questions, please write those down on the pieces of paper that are on your tables. And in a few minutes, we'll collect those and have a chance to just sort of dialogue a little bit further. Um, so you've mentioned a little bit, Erin, about the landscape of education, kind of talking about
Mhm,
charter versus traditional,
mhm,
and how in your new role you will be supporting principals.
mhm.
Tell me a little bit about what you envision that looking like.
Yeah.
You mentioned professional development. Like, what kind of professional development is needed? You know, you
Sure.
have a wealth of experience now as a principal, so that is serving you, I'm sure, in incredible ways for this new position. But what do you envision that looking like? What are you hearing from the principals that you're already in communication
Mhm,
with?
mhm, yep. So it will look like it's a grant opportunity. So principals, it's almost like a fellowship, right? So existing charter school principals will apply. They'll go through a series of interviews, site visits where I'll be able to go to their school and walk their building, and they'll talk about all the great things and the things that they need. And then it'll be a pilot cohort, and we're still designing it. And so ideally, it'll look like 4 to 6 principals in this fellowship, and I'll be able to ask them, out of these interviews and site visits, what are the things that you need to make your school great whether that's changing the letter grade or improving an element of their school. It could be we need stronger data systems. We need how do I manage my board, facilities with a charter school. It's a charter school, like you have to facilities and fund and financials and all of that. It could be, hey, I really want to focus on kindergarten, first and second grade reading. How do I improve that in my building? Or how do I look at fifth grade science and make that strong? Or hey, when our teachers are meeting together every week, we need stronger data meetings. So whatever that thing is, whether it's instructional or school culture, then I will create professional development. So it could be those 4 principles we come together and we're going on excellent school visits. It could be looking at some of the people that I've worked with the past 8 to 10 years in CMS and say, hey, this principal in CMS or this person in CMS is really, really strong in this. I'm going to connect you to this charter school leader because they don't have a district or someone they can call. So you can create professional development experiences for them. So connecting these leaders to resources where they don't have to worry about the funding. It's, I'm going to pay for that for you, or I'm going to send you to this school to visit, to learn from, because often charter schools are standalones. Like I'm not talking KIPP, I'm talking about the standalone charter school that just got their authorization, and they're doing good things in their community, but it's just them. I don't have a district or a literacy specialist that I can call. But when they're working with me, then I can say, well, I know a literacy specialist, or I know someone strong in data, or my former dean of students, she grew our kindergarten scores to 88% proficient. Let me connect you to them, and have them work with your school to increase the quality.
Are there multiple yous at great schools, or are you the one person who is working with these cohorts of principals?
Sure. So it is a very, very strong team, people who are strong in ops, operations. So I'm over school quality. So if you are an existing charter school leader, you'll work with me. And then there's another MD, managing director of new school launches. So this person has been in charter for a while, and she will support leaders who want to open up their own charter school or get their charter authorized, or let's get it off the ground. So they'll come through the two of us. And there's another MD, facilities and finance. And oftentimes, charter schools are not opening or they're closing because of facilities and finance. And as a school leader, I never took a course. Well, I did. I took a course in school finance, but it was not great. Um, it wasn't great at all. And that is generally when you take a school finance class, it's nothing of what you will really experience. And while I have not opened a charter, I have worked in charter before. That financial management is very intense and very different. And so, if an element of your school to be great is to strengthen your financial health or to work with facilities. Like I don't know what it's like to talk to contractors and develop. I don't have that experience. Most principals don't. And so they'll work with this other person. So it's about 3 of us on this kind of programming team and then 3 others on the operations team to help us as well. Yeah.
Um, why charter schools? Because that is a shift for you.
It
So
is.
was there any
Yeah.
like, this is going to be different
Sure.
along the way?
So I actually started my career in charter. I taught within Teach for America. I did 2 years in traditional public, and then I taught at a charter school in Chicago. And then my first principalship was a charter in Dallas, Texas, with a CMO and all of that. So charter is public school. I'm all about family, and this organization is about families making great choices for their kids. And so we're starting with charter schools because North Carolina landscape, there is not an organization like ours that exists that provides deep investment in quality for an improvement in schools for charter school leaders. Would we shift to traditional district and public school? That is absolutely a possibility, but we're starting with charter school leaders. But charter schools are public schools, and my love is public school. Now, my nieces, they are in private. Good education is good education. That's great. My kind of lane is public school, but it's not necessarily a shift for me. It is I am supporting leaders who are doing the work to dramatically alter the life paths of their kids, and that is what's most important to me.
We're thankful for that. I have a few more questions and then
Okay.
we'll kind of open it up a little bit. Um, I laughed at this one because it's funny it doesn't sound great to read, but what makes you despair? But more importantly, what makes you hope? So when
Yeah.
you look at kind of future, education?
Mhm.
What makes you despair, and
Sure.
more importantly, what gives you hope?
Sure. I think what's troubling me the most right now is just the overall health and sustainability of school principals, particularly for my buddies. And I have lots of buddies in CMS that I'm still connected to. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of big change. There's a lot of change in the building. There's just change is happening at a rapid rate. Um, and we're tasked with we take the mandate and we go and do it and we do it well and we show up for our kids every day. But then these principals were going home and it is just we depleted. And I think that was also a big reason of my needing to shift. I was taking care of other people's children, like advocating them and supporting them, and I would go home to my own, and I had nothing for my 2-year-old, nothing. But my mind is always on my kids from Highland or a text from a mama, or and that I needed a bit of a balance. And how do we really support and take care of a principal? Beyond like, yes, donating supplies and doing things for teachers is great. That is needed because teachers are really doing the work. Um, but that principal, how is that principal? And so I say again, if you have children, grandchildren, if you're just connected to a school, just going to that principal and saying, "Hey, what do you need?" And the principal will say, "Oh no, we're fine. No, we're not." It could be lunch. It could be, "Have you eaten? Like, what is your favorite thing to eat?" And then that thing, if you drop it off, or what can I take off your hands, or hey, it's lunch duty. Let me go do lunch duty. Like just proximity to the principal, that is really important. And I think that is what helped guide me through those kind of last year at Highland, like the partnership with Highland, with Mandy and Nikki saying, "What do you need?" And allowing our monthly check ins to literally go off the agenda. And I think one meeting, I just got it all out for like 30 minutes. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm off agenda." And they were like, "No, you're fine. You're fine." And the next day they came and like they literally gave me a hug. And I was like, needed that. Thank you. So principals just checking in on that principal, and making sure that they are well enough to literally do the work that is before them. And what makes me hopeful is just partnerships like this, and people who deeply love public education, and will advocate, um, who will show up, who will volunteer, who will drop off, who will pull a small group of third graders and read to them and bookshop or read aloud with kindergartners, like just being proximate to the work. It's very easy to get caught up in what the news says, or what is said on social media. But when you are in a building, which you all are, you see it. And you can easily, when that news thing comes up or someone on social media says something, you can easily say, "No, no, that's not true." Or, "You know what, that's an interesting data point. Let me offer something else." Um, Proximity, deep proximity to the work. That that makes me hopeful. That takes care of the principal. That keeps schools running.
Tell us a little bit about kind of the Highland Covenant partnership.
Yeah.
You know, I think Covenant feels like we love you and
Oh, I
we
love y'all.
know you
Yeah.
and are so excited
Mhm,
for your next what's already become your next step.
mhm.
But talk to us a little bit about the partnership with Covenant,
Sure.
and what that might kind of look like moving forward, and even some of your kind of initial um, feelings toward this
Sure.
partnership.
Yeah. So coming into Highland, I think I was going into, I don't know what, year 5 of the principalship. I had never had a faith-based partnership. Not when I was in Texas, not in Atlanta. Um, I knew schools that did, but I just had never had one and I didn't know what that looked like. And so I came into Highland on July 19th, 2019, and I asked my former AP, I said, "Who are the partners, the players that wrap their arms around the school? Who do I need to connect with?" And she said, "Covenant." She said, "You need to call them. Here's the people. I'll set up an email. You need to be there." And I was like, great. So I remember looking up, because I'm a member of Friendship Missionary Baptist. And I remember looking up Covenant and I saw it was a predominantly white church. And I said, huh, we were Title One, Black and brown, homeless kids. I said, how? I didn't know how that was going to work, or the perceptions of my kids to the church. And I will say, I have never, from the first meeting with Marilyn and Lucy and Julia at the time, and now Mandy and Nikki, I have never felt like Highland or Covenant has come into Highland with a poor baby mentality. I have never felt kind of the white savior. I have never felt that. I have felt that Covenant deeply loves and respects my kids and my teachers and our community, is deeply invested in me, the school leader. And when turbulent times were happening, from the social worker situation to things that were happening just nationally in schools, I think there was yet another school shooting. And the next day, Marilyn came over with a card and she said, "We are thinking of you all." And I was like, I was on the bus parking lot playing like some running after kids or something. And she was like, "We're just thinking of you." Like, and when I say taking care of the school leader, that's what you all have done for me. And that I have felt every time you all have come in my building is with a deep respect and love for my kids. And when we have won and just celebrating big things, you all are one of the first emails that I would send, like, "Guess what happened at the school? And look at this. And can I come speak to the congregation?" Because you all poured so much into the building. That's why it was so important when I was speaking with Principal Imani Harper. I said, "You better like be there, meet, like that is, yes, it's a partnership that supports the school, but it is going to take care of you, especially as a first year baby principal." And I call all first years baby principals, like not saying anything about her, like first years, y'all the baby principals. We all have been there. But for you to be taken care of, like you've got to, yeah. And it has transformed me. And I told Nikki, I said, "I know I'm not the principal anymore, but like, is this just it? Like, is it like, okay, bye, Erin?" Like, on to, and she was like, "No." And I was like, "How do we stay together?" She said, "I don't know." And I was like, "Well, let's figure it out." Obviously not to, because I told Principal Harper, I said, "This is now your house." Like when I went to Highland, I had to drop off some things. I rang the buzzer, I put on a visitor badge, I sat in the front. She was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "This is your house. I don't live here anymore. Like I'm respecting." And she was like, "You're being silly." I said, "No, no, no. We need to have boundaries." Um, and I get, you all will support Highland and her, but I'm like, but wait, how do we, I don't want us to break up.
I don't think we want to break up with you either. So how do we not? How
Oh,
do
like
we-
I'm open to that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I do. I think I can speak for everyone in saying that, we would love to be able to follow along with what you are doing. And
Yeah,
so how can we stay connected to you?
sure.
I think it goes without saying that like you are someone who we will hold in prayer as you're transitioning to a new space, but beyond that kind of intangible support,
Mhm.
how do we stay connected to you?
Yeah. I don't know. Y'all have my phone number. I I guess thinking of, as I'm now shifting to, now I'll be able to really visit schools across the state, which I'll be going into rural schools. I don't know anything about rural education, or rural schools and resources, but being able to now have this vantage point of school outside of Charlotte, I don't know how helpful or impactful, or just talking about just education, not just in Charlotte, which is still very important, is our context, but now like I have just broader information. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know, like being in conversation about that. I don't know if it's, hey, if a school is like, "Hey, we don't have a faith-based partnership." Like, what was it like? I don't know. Like, I am open to all the things. I know you all have lots of series and sessions on just various topics. Would love to just come and sit. I remember one of my favorite moments with Covenant. You all did a online book study of white fragility, and myself and three of my staff members, we did it too. Um, and that was just, and I said, this is not, Covenant isn't asking us to do this, but just they're a partner, and let's be in community together. I joked with Nikki. I said, "Do I need to join the church?" She was like, but I think I am connected to you all. So when you all have different things, like I need to make sure like I come to different events. And if there's things to talk about, like I'm open to everything. Yeah.
Well, we'll be glad to figure that out
Yeah.
alongside you.
Sure.
I'm going to ask one more question and
Sure.
then collect a couple to ask from folks here. Circling back to the kind of theme and idea of equipping,
Mhm.
what encouragement might you have for us as we work to equip ourselves for what's next? Not everyone has that clarity of it is truly time for the next thing. So, talk to us about what encouragement you might have for being equipped for the next thing.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things for me is just being still and listening. Like, be still and know, right? And even though I didn't really know, like, just getting quiet, and just allowing yourself to be open to the possibilities and the things, whatever that is, right? So I'm very much in my motherhood season with the two. He'll be 3 next week. Um, he is really using his vocabulary and language. That is the most positive way for me to say that. So I'm like, okay, like, look, we are in this new season. Like, I cannot control all the things. Let me just be still. I think that that is one thing that I would say. And community is so important. So remaining in community with others. I think that's the best. That's the best way. And realizing that whatever that next step is, whether it's the next step in your motherhood journey, the next step of your career, or just your development as a person, knowing that you don't have to have it all figured out, right? And believing that, and I can point to every season in my career, in my personal and professional life, God has always been there, always. And I tell people all the time, like, He can snatch you out of something, but know that you're still, even though He's snatching you out, like, He still has you. You're not just, okay, I'm just plunking you over there. It's like, I'm going to get you out of here and I still have you. And I'm going to put you here and I'm still here. Um, and so that is helpful for me to know that even in this new opportunity, like, okay, I know nothing about philanthropy. I'm learning though. Um, I know nothing about the landscape of education in rural schools, or really charters in North Carolina, to be very honest with you. But I know school leadership. I know what it takes to an extent to grow your school. And that's helpful and that's good.
One of my favorite prayers has a line in there about trusting in the slow work of God.
Mm,
And we don't like for things to move slowly. So that's a
mhm,
really hard thing to do,
mhm,
but good
mhm.
encouragement to remember that
Yep,
God does have you.
yep.
Okay, I have a couple of questions from folks
Yes.
here. A good majority of these have to do with charter schools.
Okay.
Um,
I'll see what I can
so
answer.
yeah, we'll just see how this goes. You're good. All right, this one says you have a lot of experience in public and charter schools.
Mhm.
What model in public schools do you think will help ensure a quality education for all children?
It's a really big question. Um, so when I initially think, my brain goes to like your academic model. Is it Montessori? Is it STEAM? Is it project-based learning? Is it traditional education? I think the model that is going to work for kids, having strong teachers, and that may feel like the safe answer, right? But strong teachers that are well developed, and I think that takes me back to the principal. It is, and I can say this because I've done it. The principal has to nurture and develop the teachers. The principal has to be visible in classrooms. The principal has to give real-time feedback. So whether our academic model is Montessori or STEAM or performing arts, or it is just a traditional pre-K through fifth grade school, I can say that every teacher in my building gets real-time feedback. They have an opportunity to kind of fail safely, right? Like, you didn't do this lesson quite right. Let's work together on this. Let's Developing and giving that teacher feedback is important. regardless of your model. And even if you have a specialty model in your building, that feedback is super important. That culture of real-time feedback and analyzing your data. And that sounds like a very easy answer. In practice, it is not. But that is what is going to improve the quality, whether you're charter, public. I can't speak for private because don't have that experience, but I would imagine if you are standing in front of kids, there needs to be a school leader connected to you that knows your data, knows your practice, and can give you feedback.
This is probably a related question that might have a similar response. What is your assessment of the public charter school initiative so far? Years in implementation now, are charter schools a good use of public funding?
I am only a month in, okay? And I have only been on one call with kind of state officials with charter schools. And I will say that there is a deep lack of support for charter schools. You can't open up a school and then just kind of say, okay, the school's open, and the people just kind of walk away. And then I only come back when things are bad. I think if we're really going to invest in schools, you have to support that school. And support can't be, I come to you 1 or 2 times a year and then I go away. Like there has to be proximity to the work. And so my push right now, a month in, is okay, so talk to me about what your support has looked like in the past. How are you measuring success of that support? And then that's going to help me decide, okay, in my programming, okay, that wasn't really support. Right? Like you need deep touch points. You need a community of practice. You need feedback. And that's where our organization will be able to help. Yeah.
All right, this will be our last question before we wrap up for the morning. How can we as a community, and I think this means not just Covenant, but kind of a larger community,
Mhm.
how can we as a community strengthen and support charter schools without hollowing out traditional district schools in the process?
Again, I'm a month in. Yeah, these are really, really good questions. I hope you don't think I'm avoiding the questions. I'm not. I'm literally a month in. Um, so that's a good question. I'm probably not going to really answer. I'm just going to talk my way through it. So, like my son, I have to register him for pre-K in December. And we are looking at traditional public school. Like our homeschool is Parkside, but I really want my kid to go to Highland. I want him to be in Mr. Fowler's pre-K class. And so I know that is, I don't know if there's tension there with like there's public school. Like I'm a public school principal, traditional public. And then what does it look like from a financial standpoint? You know, money going towards charter schools. I can't answer that. What I can say is strong public schools are strong for kids. Um, and I'm going to support the principal. Right now, it's a charter school principal. It could evolve to be a traditional district principal, but right now, schools, traditional and charter, need deep investment. There are strong charter schools. There are not so strong charter schools. There are strong traditional schools. There are not so strong traditional schools, and they all need support and advocacy and deep investment. Um, yeah. I'm sure you're like, you did not answer that question. I'm a month in, but I believe that like whether we're traditional district or charter, there has to be deep investment because we cannot do kids a disservice. Just because it's charter doesn't mean I need to walk into a building and get raggedy instruction. You know what I'm saying? Same thing for traditional district. There has to be deep support and it has to be hands joined. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Would y'all join me in thanking Erin for her time? I want to share a quick reminder about what Sunday school will look like next Sunday and the following Sunday. We will have an opportunity for smaller group discussion next week in the Welcome Center. There will be on August 11th, there'll be a class kind of reflecting on spiritual and personal formation as it relates to this idea of equipping. And then on the 18th, a conversation on ministry skills and leadership skills related to equipping. So those are small group discussions that will be led by Ariel Gritter and Leanne Hall. So encourage you to spend some time in those conversations this month, and hope to see you there. We have worship at 11 o'clock and would love to see you there as well. Thank you for being with us today. Go in peace.
Thank you.